What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Drop. Greg Wyshynski, Arda, Öcal. We are with you. Essentially, we're going to call ourselves ESPN's official post-game show for every Stanley Cup Final game, including the one you're listening to right now. Game 1 in the books. Greg Wyshynski in Sunrise, Florida. Somehow, my friend, you are still in the building. If you're watching us on the NHL and ESPN YouTube, you're still in the building despite throwing all those rats on the ice. How did you stay in the building, bud?
Now, listen, I did not throw a single rat on the ice. I followed the clarion call of the hockey operations and game operations department that said that it is you could get ejected for doing so. So I am a law-abiding journalist. I did not throw a single rat, nor did I kill a rat in the locker room with a slap shot. I am rat-free tonight.
Yeah, you are not a part of the Mellenby family, and so no rats were harmed in the making of this particular episode. In fact, the rats are quite happy. The cats are quite happy as they defeat the Edmonton Oilers 3-0 in game number 1, which is a little misleading because the Oilers owned a large part of this game. They had more shots, they had more scoring chances, but when it's all said and done, you have Sergei Bobrovsky, you have 3 goals, and the Panthers take game 1. What are your biggest takeaways?
My biggest takeaway, I like what Connor McDavid said after the game. He said, maybe it was the hockey gods getting back at us for game 6 against Dallas. Remember game 6 against Dallas where like the Oilers got outshot like 1,000,000,000 and they still won the game and eliminated the Stars. So according to Connor, this is just the universe kind of correcting itself. It's even Steven at the end of the day. It's all in balance. Look, I mean, let's be honest, there's a lot the Oilers can take away from this game and feel pretty good about. They had a number of breakaway chances. Even though they went over 3 on the power play, it was probably the most entertaining over 3 I've ever seen in the NHL. They had their chances there. I mean, they carried play in the same way that they carried play throughout the Dallas series as well. So, a lot of takeaways that they can have from this game and feel pretty good about it. But what they can't feel good about is that Sergei Bobrovsky was locked in and looked like a guy that was not going to get beat. And lo and behold, he didn't get beat. 3-0. The Panthers win. And, I thought Chris Knobloch, the Oilers coach, had it in perspective after the game. He's like, there's some things we liked about our game, but we know we're going to even have to be better in game 2 because clearly the Panthers have another level to reach as well.
So obviously, Sergei Bobrovsky was spectacular in this game. He was a brick wall. He saved 2 breakaways in identical saves, left pad. He saved Connor McDavid in a Connor McDavid-esque rush towards the net. The other thing, though, that I found interesting, that second goal. So, I don't think Stuart Skinner is necessarily to blame for either goal. They were both pretty good shots. Yeah. The one thing on the second goal, and a lot of Oilers fans will focus on this, Wish, is the Cody Ceci Darnell Nurse combination, particularly in the second goal. Sam Bennett dumps the puck, gets it himself, makes the beautiful pass to Evan Rodriguez, and suddenly the Panthers score again. And this combination has not been great for the Oilers this entire postseason, and a lot is going to be made about Darnell Nurse's plus minus, etc. But how much of the Oilers' challenges lie with that defensive pair?
A lot. I mean, I think Nurse is now up to -15 for the postseason, which is incredible. I mean, he had that one brief respite in the Dallas series, but overall, the defensive pairings that he's been on have been, a liability. But like you said, I mean, at the end of the day, he's on the ice for those goals, but they're also really good plays by the Panthers. I mean, the passing play, tic-tac-toe on the first goal, the Verhaeghe goal, and then Bennett just makes a really good pass to Rodriguez on the second goal. I know the numbers say what they say about Nurse, and in particular his pairing with Ceci, but I mean, at the end of the day, like they're two good hockey plays that the Panthers made.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were and by the way, the record for lowest dash in NHL Stanley Cup playoff history is dash 16, Paul Reinhart, 1983, 9 games with the Flames. That's the record. And like you said, Darnell Nurse a dash 15. But to the Panthers' credit, they were efficient. They capitalized on their chances, and they did look good in spurts in this game, despite the Oilers dominating large parts of it. How do you like the fact that the Oilers got a fair share of chances? Bobrovsky was a brick wall. Some of the narrative on social media, Wish, is actually, yes, it's a 3-0 scoreline, but that's a little misleading. And maybe the Oilers have a better chance than we think, despite game one in this series. What do you make of that?
Well, that's what their coach was selling, and it's nonsense. Like, he's up there being like, the Panthers must have heard all of you guys in the media saying that we didn't have a chance in this series. There's a lot of people who think the Oilers are going to win this series. And anybody who came into this series thinking that the Oilers have to prove anything in game one, my God, like, watch a Western Conference game once in a while. They carried play against the second best team in the National Hockey League this season. Okay, this is not a fluke. This is not a two-man team. This is a hockey team that could easily win the Stanley Cup, and you know, tonight was just further evidence of it. So I don't know, man. Like, did they really need a moral victory in game one to prove that they could hang with the Florida Panthers? I don't think so. I think I knew it already. I think a lot of us knew it already. But if that's what you need to take away from this game, that ooh, the Oilers are for real. They're not just some prairie team that fluked their way into the Stanley Cup Final. I mean, good on you. I guess that's what you needed.
The one other thing I'd love to pick your brain on is I loved the amount, like, I know that we waited a long time for the Stanley Cup Final to start, but I actually, in watching especially the first 10 minutes of the game, I was like, thank goodness they had this rest, because they both look really fresh, both teams. Like, they look terrific. They look rested. They flew out there. And it just got me thinking, like, I hope this is the norm, that we have like a little bit of space in between the end of the conference finals and the cup final, if this is going to keep happening, Wish, because that was a lot of fun.
And it's funny, like, at media day, that was one of the things both teams said. Like, they fully expected the first 10 minutes to be, you know, just rocking and rolling, because everybody was going to be fresh and rested and ready to roll in this game. And hey, you know, make no mistake, though. I mean, we've talked a lot about Bobrovsky. I think he deserves the lion's share of the credit, and I do think that now I saw the betting markets have shifted to where he is now the favorite to win the Conn Smythe. I think you know, everybody's in agreement that this game is implanting his flag to win MVP based on that effort and based on what he's done in previous rounds. But let's not forget about Carter Verhaeghe in this. 10th goal of the postseason, a guy that has shown time and time again that he comes up big in big spots in the playoffs. The first goal of this game was going to be very important. It was either going to be Edmonton flexing, you know, one of their star players doing something star oriented and getting on the board first, or it was going to be Florida kind of, you know, gaining momentum, popping this crowd and taking the lead. And, you know, Paul Maurice said after the game that sometimes taking a lead in a game one like this is tricky, because then the other team can exhale and play a little bit better. They're not as tight. But I think that getting the lead in this game was critical. And Verhaeghe, you know, converted yet again. He's so clutch. He keeps on doing this, and it's exactly what they needed. And again, Arda, don't forget, like, the winner of game one in the Stanley Cup Final wins, I think it's like 76%,
yeah.
76% of the time in these series. So getting on the board first with a goal, getting on the board first with a win is huge for the Panthers.
It also helps that they lost in the cup final last year, so the extra motivation. But yeah, 76% is insane. And
it's not extra motivation, though. Like, the thing about this team, again, I famously picked the Oilers in this series. I picked them before the season. You picked them as well. And the, you know, just like there's always a caveat, right, when we make these dumb picks. And the caveat for me was they've been so businesslike and efficient and focused. Evan Rodriguez said something really interesting today at their skate for the Panthers. He said it wasn't a matter of them saying the goal was to get back to the Stanley Cup Final. They simply said the Stanley Cup Final was where we were going. And we just had to figure out what way it was going to take for us to get there. Like, it's like manifest destiny that they were going to play for the cup again. And when you have that level of confidence, and it does come from feeling the absolute gut punch of losing last year to Vegas, that's what made me think, okay, I think Edmonton can win this thing, but the Panthers are just completely believing in themselves right now, and playing the kind of hockey you need to play to win the cup.
So let's talk about the mental game, because clearly the Panthers players have read The Secret because the universe is conspiring in their favor and they're manifesting and etc.
They're manifesting it, yeah.
Yeah, they're manifesting it. But on the other side, one of the coolest things to come out of media day, or just even the conversations around both teams, is the fact that the Edmonton Oilers brought in a sports psychologist to essentially help them this season. And he's got quite the pedigree, Wish.
He does. Okay, so you're going to want to know this name going forward. It's George Mumford, okay? Sports psychologist. You might remember him as the guy who embraced Stuart Skinner after the conference final and said, "my man," in his ear as they're hugging on the ice. He's worked with everybody from Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant in the past. And Zach Hyman shared with our own friend Emily Kaplan some of the things that George Mumford has imparted on the Edmonton Oilers.
George is phenomenal. I mean, he's a phenomenal person first and foremost, and I think similar to Chris in the calming mindset, George is a very calming presence for our group. He's always talking to guys. He always seems to have a pulse on the team and on players. Whenever he needs somebody to talk to, he's always there, and he's had a wealth of experience primarily in the NBA and helping teams get to championships, and obviously we're now in a Stanley Cup Final, and I think he's behind the scenes one of the reasons.
Is there one specific piece of advice that really stuck with you from him?
I think just talking about an unshakable belief. I think it's something that we needed early on. When we were second to last, you need that unshakable belief and that confidence. And I think as you go through a playoff series, there are moments that test you and that push you on the edge. In the Vancouver series, we were down 3-2, and you need to find an unshakable belief in the group. And I think that kind of message, he delivered it to us early, but it stuck with us throughout the whole year, and you use it at times when things are tough.
So as you can see, you know, he's been a huge influence, an influence on Skinner, an influence on this entire team. When he says things, they listen. I'm telling you, man, they win the Stanley Cup. George Mumford's name should be on the cup, Arda.
Absolutely. And I hope he calls the Edmonton Oilers team his sons, because that would be Mumford and Sons. Here all week, try the veal. Remember, after every cup final game. Yeah. So the mental aspect for both teams certainly in play here, but just still a very interesting, like, correct. Tell me if I'm off base here. Like, I just want to go back to the start of the game, because both teams are relatively injury free, right? Like, these are two full rosters, well rested enough. Like
the Panthers are definitely healthier than they were last year. I mean, Maurice said last year,
absolutely.
I think when the final started, there were maybe 14 guys that were healthy. They're very much healthier than
ones
they were
that
last
are not
year.
in the lineup as well.
There's a lot of discussion about whether McDavid's still banged up, and that's why he's not scoring as many goals. But overall, pretty healthy, I guess.
Okay, but McDavid had McDavid-esque moments in game one. I hear what you're saying in terms of like the hockey player that suddenly they leave the Stanley Cup playoffs and they die of dysentery like Oregon Trail. Like, I get that. Okay, I understand. Like, they have 20 million injuries, whatever. But what I'm saying is, like, there's no like out of the lineup major pieces for both of these teams. They're both, you know, fielding full strength lineups on the ice. If this is the way the series is going to go, and if Sergei Bobrovsky is going to continue to stand on his head, the Oilers are not going to be able to outscore their problems. Like, this could be like, how much could game one be the blueprint for the cup final, for the series itself?
It can't be. That's the part of this that I'm gonna disagree with, is that I don't think the Panthers can win this way. I don't think that I mean, yeah, it's easy to say Bob can do this 3 more times, and he probably could. I mean, he's one of the best goalies on the planet. He's playoff Bob. He's clutch. I don't think this is sustainable. This is a 1-0 game after the first period, where the Oilers outshot the Panthers 12-4. Okay. They had multiple breakaways. I think they actually had 3 breakaways in the game, if you include that Matthias Janmark one later in the game. As Chris Knobloch pointed out, they also started the Dallas series very slow on the power play, and then scored like 4 out of 5 chances later on in the series. So when you think about how this game played out, breakaways that were, you know, thwarted by the hot goalie, A couple of McDavid chances that were thwarted by the hot goalie, 3 power plays for Edmonton, and the 6-on-5 at the end of the game where they didn't get anything out of it. That's not going to be the case in the rest of the series. Like, that is not going to happen 3 more times. So I think the Panthers need to be a hell of a lot better than they were in game 1, to be honest with you, because I don't think that it's sustainable, and I don't think that you can keep the kind of elite, all-world generational talent the Oilers have on their roster off the score sheet like they did in game 1.
That is so interesting that a team, just think of this objectively, a team wins 3-0 in game 1. And the takeaway is, if they continue to play like that, they might not win this series. Like, it's crazy, I mean, right? No, you're right.
You saw it and I saw
crazy.
it. I mean, like, you had a Zach Hyman chance that he roofed over the goal. You had some other shots that just went through the crease. Like, I'm not saying that Bobrovsky was lucky or anything. He was awesome tonight. But it wasn't as if the Oilers didn't generate just a ton of chances. I think the final count in high danger shot attempts was 18-6 in all situations. Like, if that keeps happening, they're gonna score. And so it's contingent on the Panthers to recognize that, yeah, game 1 is great. It puts them in a real position to win the Stanley Cup. But if they're gonna win the Stanley Cup, they can't allow this to happen 3 more times.
So game 2 is Monday on ABC. I wonder who among the Panthers will win poker night and who will win at Mario Kart for the Edmonton Oilers.
Well, here's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because if there was one big takeaway from Media Day from me, Arda, it's that we have identified this series as one where it is the Panthers against the Oilers. It is rats versus slabs of beef that are thrown on the ice, the tradition that is back in vogue in Edmonton. But more than anything else, it is poker games versus Mario Kart. We talked a lot about the travel during Media Day, about how this is the greatest distance between 2 opponents in the Stanley Cup Final. And what does that mean? What happens on the planes during these trips? Well, it turns out what happens on the Panthers plane is high stakes poker games for about 7 hours. I talked to Brandon Montour today. I'm like, "Are you part of these poker games?" He's like, "I am not part of these poker games." I'm like, "Why not?" He goes, "Because I don't have the stamina to deal with these poker games." They start playing the poker game while they're on the tarmac, and the poker game continues until they land at their destination. So that is what's happening on the Panthers plane. What's happening on the Edmonton plane is Mario Kart. We learned last round that Stuart Skinner loves playing the Mario Kart, plays as Toad. I talked to some of the Oilers. They said there's a Nintendo Switch on the plane. It is in constant use in the back of the plane. There are Mario Kart tournaments. It's very exciting. So you got the Rainbow Road on one plane. You got Texas Hold'em on the other, and that is how we're flying to Edmonton after game 2.
I would want to be on the Oilers charter, just for the record. Let's talk about, we saw Steve Levy with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman on the point. Of course, he is their president at the Stanley Cup Final. He also had a press conference, the annual State of the Union before game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. A lot to talk about, though. We had a lot of news, a lot of interesting tidbits, nuggets, and thoughts from Commissioner Gary Bettman. What were your 5 biggest news items / takeaways from the Bettman news conference?
Well, the first obviously was the Four Nations tournament. That's the big international 4-team tournament that they're going to have next season as sort of the appetizer ahead of the 2026 Olympics. By the way, kind of amazing to be at a Gary Bettman press conference and not have a question about Olympic participation, because we're actually participating, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So they announced that it's going to be 4 games at Bell Center in Montreal, 3 games at TD Garden in Boston. ESPN, Turner, Rogers, the current rights holders, are going to broadcast this tournament. ABC is going to have a doubleheader on February 14th. That is Sweden versus Finland, and then the one we've all been waiting for, USA Canada. That's going to be at Bell Center. So we're going to be in enemy territory, our American Patriots.
Speak for yourself.
Then TD Garden's going to have 3 games, including the championship final on ESPN. Now, what was interesting about today, besides the specifics about the venues, Arda, I think we were all under the impression that there would be maybe like a semi-final round and then the championship, or at the very least a championship game and then like a consolation game between the 2 teams not playing for the title. And that's not the case. It's just going to be round robin right into the championship. You like that?
I mean, I would prefer a semifinal, but honestly, the fact that we're getting any sort of appetizer international competition with 4 countries. I love that David Pastrnak was celebrating with the World Championship, and he's like, "Why can't we be part of this? We just won a World Championship."
Yeah.
I'm okay with it, honestly, for this one year. Make it a bridge. The Olympics will be the year after that, and then we'll see a World Championship. So I don't feel like I'm okay with it for this one time. Set the foundation, lay the groundwork. Okay, fine, sure.
Bettman was asked about the fact that Czechia and Germany, obviously Leon Draisaitl is a major star in this league. He's not in the tournament. And Switzerland, like these teams aren't in. And he said not only is it trying to keep it a smaller field because of the time constraint of when they're holding the tournament, which is just in a couple weeks in February, but also they wanted to make it a pure NHL player tournament. And so if Czechia is going to have other international players from other leagues to come in, same with all these other countries. So that's part of their rationale too. Second thing, salary cap news. The cap is going to be at 88 million this season, slightly higher than original projections. To which Bettman said, guess we're actually making the revenue we said we were making, all you doubters. The salary cap floor is 65 million. So good news to teams that are looking to spend this summer, as they'll have a little bit more wiggle room. Number 3 for me was no expansion timeline, according to Gary Bettman or NHLPA chief Marty Walsh. You get the sense that it's going to happen fairly soon. Like an announcement that they're going to be in an expansion mode could happen at some point this year. They're just not ready to do it yet. They obviously have a ton of different markets that are interested in bringing the NHL to those cities, Atlanta being probably chief among them. But there was a lot of praise for Utah, the newest NHL city, where the Coyotes relocated earlier this year, especially because they've been able to accomplish so much on a very short timeline. And Bettman said they're literally drinking from a fire hose, and they're doing it unbelievably well, to which I would say, sir, is it possible that Gary Bettman has seen UHF, the Weird Al Yankovic movie, where Michael Richards has a child drink from the fire hose?
Probably. That's exactly
Probably
where
not.
you got it.
I don't think so. Probably not. Fourth thing, Bill Daly said that the GMs have been polled about long-term injured reserve cap shenanigans. They don't consider it to be a short-term problem. It's not anything they're looking to change right away. But he said it's quite possible, Arda, that the NHL and the NHLPA will change the long-term injured reserve rules in the next CBA, which is 2 years away from being negotiated. So they don't see it as something they want to change now, which is great news, obviously, for the Vegas Golden Knights. But it is something that maybe could change in the next CBA.
Okay, excellent. And then also, I believe Gary Bettman talked about the possibility of a Stadium Series event.
Yeah.
In Florida, in Miami.
This is one of those deals where he didn't say no. He didn't say no. He was asked about Lone Depot Park, home of the Miami Marlins. Could we see a Florida Panthers outdoor game in that facility? And Bettman said he wants to get the Panthers in a stadium game. He likes that venue because it has air conditioning and a roof. 2 very important things here in South Florida. After next season, when the Blue Jackets host their outdoor game at Ohio State, the Panthers and Utah will be the only 2 NHL teams that have yet to appear in an outdoor game. So clearly they want to rectify that now that the Panthers are kind of a glamour franchise, back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. So I think we might be seeing an outdoor game, or an indoor-outdoor game, I guess, in South Florida in the near future here.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if Utah just suddenly had like a Lake Tahoe-esque game at some national park just randomly?
Hey, listen,
we
man.
got one. We got one.
They know how to do it now. Don't play the game at noon under the baking sun.
Yeah.
Just don't do that again.
6-hour postponements.
Yeah. So it was a really interesting press conference. A lot of news came out of it. There was also some talk about the revenues that have been just booming for the league so far this year, and how successful the year was from a ratings perspective. I mean, there's a lot of good things that are happening to the NHL right now, and sometimes these press conferences with Bettman are contentious, and there's a lot of things to talk about and a lot of controversies. There weren't a lot of those this year outside of, a few questions about the Hockey Canada investigation. Bettman reiterating, by the way, that Stan Bowman and Joel Quenneville both are not allowed to return to the NHL quite yet because of the Blackhawks investigation. But other than that, it was a very sort of like informational news breaking kind of press conference versus the yelly kind that we usually have with this guy.
All right, so that does it for us here on the show. Wish will be on the ground for every Stanley Cup Final game, and we will be here post-game after every game. So look forward to seeing us on Monday after Game 2 between the Panthers and the Oilers. Panthers take Game 1, final score 3-0.
We should mention one last thing, Arda.
What's that?
Celebrity in the house for Game 1. Ariana Grande
Whoa.
and Ethan Slater watching Game 1. Tell the people about Ariana Grande and the Panthers.
Yeah, Ariana Grande, of course, famously rode the Zamboni. I believe it was a home opener one year, maybe in the late 90s, somewhere there. Young Ariana Grande in a newspaper clipping. It's pretty famous in the hockey bubble. You guys probably know exactly what I'm talking about. She's wearing a Florida Panthers jersey. She has her hand raised. She's at the back of a Zamboni. And that essentially cemented her love affair with the Florida Panthers. And there she was watching the game. That's really cool. Hey, look, I love to see it.
Yeah, celebrity puckhead in the house, supporting the team. You love to see it. Ethan Slater, who of course was SpongeBob on Broadway, right there with her. And we are blessed with gossip page royalty at Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final.
We're blessed with plenty to talk about in the Stanley Cup Final. We're also blessed with a great producer. Thank you, Justin Cloutier, for putting this all together for us, buddy. I know we give you a lot of work day in and day out on this show, but we appreciate you. We appreciate all of you for watching and listening on the NHL and the ESPN YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. See you Monday after game number 2.
Take care.